Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our Brenventory. This is my inventory of all the physical print and paper books that I have at the moment, where I'm pulling each one off the shelf and touching each one and thinking about each one, and that is causing me to shift each one around, which accounts for the pauses in the Brenventory and also makes me wonder what the point of it is. But we're going to go through it anyway. We're going to continue. Several of you have said that you miss it, so we are going to do the next couple of shelves, I think. It should be fairly easy to get through them because they have a theme. And we'll see if you can spot the theme. I'm guessing that it won't take you long. So the first one is the collaborative plays of William Shakespeare and others. This Royal Shakespeare Society hardcover that the plays themselves aren't much to write home about, but the scholarship in this thing is incredible. About the vastly collaborative world that was Shakespeare's world. That was just incredible. This is just an amazing volume, and I never see it. I never ever leave that out. So the others are easy to maneuver. I never see it, but it is a perfect companion to the Royal Shakespeare Society, the Royal Shakespeare Company's actual collected Shakespeare, which has all tons of tips of articles and reviews tipped in it. And this again, I mean. When it comes to Shakespeare, you just need the plays. Even now, after all this time, you barely need any footnotes, especially if you're saying them out loud with friends, where each one of you has a part or a couple of parts. Because that's going to make you realize what is being said and why, in almost all cases, that is. But, I mean, and there's plenty of Shakespeare here that doesn't have any quotes, that doesn't have any notations, but I love them. I love the notations myself. Like, for instance, this is a perfect example. This is the Barnes & Noble leather-bound edition of Shakespeare that doesn't have any notes. It's just got the lovely leather-bound format there. It's not their current one, but it's one that I had to find, but I really like it. Okay, then we have another complete Shakespeare. This is the Pelican Complete Shakespeare. And again, the only reason why I would there are all sorts of notes, but the only reason why I would have such a thing, as opposed to, in addition to all these other collected Shakespeares, is because the notes will be different, and those are interesting for me. Then we have Charles Nicholl. This is his book Shakespeare the Lodger, about one particular period in Shakespeare's life where he was a lodger and a litigant and a tax dodger. And Charles Nicholl wrote, he is really good at exhuming all of the minutiae of the details of the records in order to paint the fullest picture possible of such a thing as this, or most famously his book The Reckoning, about the death of Christopher Marlowe. This is so I mean, this isn't a short book, so you get a huge amount about the time period and about the neighborhood and about the people who were involved, who owned the house, who owned it before them, who got it after them, etc., etc. The one thing in this book, it's great, it's so readable. The one thing in this book about which you will learn nothing at all is Shakespeare the playwright. Shakespeare, the active and lauded, much sought after and well paid playwright that he is supposed to have been at exactly this time. So if this was the lodger Smith, it wouldn't change anything about the book. It wouldn't change anything at all, except the saleability of the book. It wouldn't change anything at all. It would be a tax scapegrace and where he lived at a particularly parlous time in his life. And you would be reading it and you would be thinking, okay, that's really interesting. So what is the legal status of widows in Tudor England? What is their status as a property owner? And what can they do with that property to make sure that it doesn't go to a son who's gone bad? Or what rights do the bailiffs have when they come into your neighborhood, or even want to come into your house? What is all that? That's all really, really fascinating. And this Smith guy, he was there for it all. You wouldn't change a single thing. The only reason that you have the name there is because the name is on documents, so we know the name is true, but no hint at all, anywhere in the book, that this Shakespeare guy is a writer. None at all. No. Anyway, that's you may have detected the theme by now. This next one is Mark Anderson. This is his book, by any other name. This is he is the latest, or not the latest, but the biggest and most popular account of Shakespeare being the Earl of Oxford. The person who wrote, not Shakespeare, not the Shakespeare who was in Shakespeare the Lodger, but Shakespeare, the author of the plays, was actually the Earl of Oxford. That is the theory behind this book, and it is put forward in enormous detail. Of course, Anderson wasn't the first to do it, but for some reason his book caught on. 30 years ago, I think, when it came out. When did you come out? 2005, almost 30 years ago. For some reason it caught on, and a lot of people wrote about it. All right, what is next here? Okay, this is by Darren Freebury Jones, and it is Shakespeare's Borrowed Feathers, How Early Modern Playwrights Shaped the World's Greatest Writer. This is University Press of some kind? Manchester University Press. As you're going to be able to tell from this video, I love reading about Shakespeare. I love reading Shakespeare. I love reading about Shakespeare as well. Even constructive studies like this, or I think there's one that is not on this bookcase yet. I think I just haven't moved it yet. Somewhere here on a bookcase that we haven't got to yet. There were a couple from last year that I don't think I've moved yet. I don't think I've put them with all the Shakespeare books. I'm never going to see it while I'm looking for... Oh, yes. Here we go. Like this. This will not be on this tour, although it should be. This is The Dream Factory by Daniel Swift, which is about one of the theaters that Shakespeare would have used. And that is just off somewhere else. And there are a couple of others like that from last year, because I get them all. I read them all. A lot of them, like this thing, are not particularly riveting reading, but it doesn't matter to me. Then we have Jonathan Bate. I was kind of hoping that I would find this book. This is The Genius of Shakespeare. Jonathan Bate is great. He is fantastic as a literary judge and as a literary biographer, although there's precious little to go on here if you want to make a literary biography. Okay, here we have, this is, Joseph Sobran, the alias Shakespeare, solving the greatest literary mystery of all time, who was Shakespeare. One of many such books that I have, you're going to see, like, for instance, there's this, Diana Price, very famous in Shakespearean authorship circles, for this book, Shakespeare's Unorthodox Biography, where she decided to create a metric to test the idea that maybe the person who wrote the plays attributed to William Shakespeare was not William Shakespeare of Stratford-on-Avon. And to do that, to test that, she came up with, to create her metric, she came up with a series of yardsticks, common sense yardsticks. Is there any evidence that this person made his living as a writer? Is there any evidence that any other writers knew him as a writer? Is there any evidence that any people in his life who weren't writers knew him as a writer? And so on and so forth. And she took all the literary names of the time period, Johnson and Marlowe and all the others, and Shakespeare, and ranked them according to her researches, depending on all of those yardsticks. And Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, comes out dead last. Where in almost all of those cases, in fact, I think she determines that in all of those cases, literally all of them, he doesn't show up at all. Whereas for someone like Johnson, is there any evidence that this person ever read or owned a book? Is there any evidence that this person who we're claiming is a writer, ever went to school, ever learned languages, ever learned how to write? Any evidence of any of that? I mean, she just had one heading after another along those lines, and Shakespeare is not there. As I've said many, many times before, whether you come up with a candidate or not, whether you have a pet theory or not, you cannot avoid the reality when you want to write a biography of this person that he's not there. He's not there. You have to assume who he was and then write the biography, which is the exact reverse of what you're supposed to do. And Diana Price keeps her cool throughout the whole thing. She actually has a wonderful YouTube video, if it's still up on YouTube, going over the short form of the book. But the book is worth reading too. Okay, then we have a galley copy. This is from, when were you? 2010. So before we were talking to each other. This is James Shapiro, and this is Contested Will, who wrote Shakespeare. I don't think I ever got the finished copy of this thing, but I'm glad to have it. Oh, all right. Well, this is Michael Pennington. This is not an authorship book at all. This is Hamlet, a user's guide, a dissection of Hamlet that is terrific, absolutely terrific. It's the second best dissection of Hamlet that's ever been done. The best dissection of Hamlet that's ever been done is What Happens in Hamlet, which is a Shakespeare book I don't own. Amazing. I have owned 1 million copies of that book, but I don't have it at the minute. The Brattle will provide. Then, let's see, who is this? Oh, all right, John Michell. This is Who Wrote Shakespeare? Another, this is a UK guide, printed in Slovenia and done by Thames and Hudson. This is just another guide breaking down all of the candidates, which I think is a mistake. If you're interested in the Shakespeare authorship controversy, I think that's a mistake. The minute you ask the question, who wrote Shakespeare, you are reaching beyond what can be known. I think that these conspiracy theorists are on a lot stronger ground if they simply lay out the case that he couldn't have done it, that Shakespeare of Stratford-on-Avon couldn't have done it. All right, then we have conventional literary reconstruction. This is Samuel Schonbohn's book, Shakespeare's Lives, which I have had usually I've had this in a gigantic, heavy hardcover, but I realized, when I saw this paperback, I realized that does this have a pub sheet in it? Oh my God, it does. When I saw this paperback, I realized that I don't need the hardcover. That I don't go back to it enough. I want it, but I don't go. When I have a Shakespeare jag, I go back to Schonbohn, but I don't need it, so I got the paperback. Oh, okay, great. Oh, fantastic. All right, this is by Michael Blanding, and it is okay. This is by Michael Blanding, and it is about someone else. Let me show you. This is about Dennis McCarthy, that guy. And this is North by Shakespeare, where Dennis McCarthy came up with a statistical analysis tool that allowed him to demonstrate to his mind, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Lord North wrote Shakespeare. So he comes up with a candidate, and he also comes up with a statistical, Moneyball type way to figure out from the works that whoever Shakespeare was, the author of these works, can be determined. And Michael Blanding took up that story. He's a popularizer of stories, and he wrote a great book about it. And I reviewed this somewhere. I don't remember where, but I had a fun time reviewing it. Okay, then we have Graham Phillips and Martin Keatman, The Shakespeare Conspiracy. Some of these Shakespeare authorship books are a little more lightweight than others, unfortunately. Let's see here. Oh, these are wedged in. Goodness gracious. Okay, another critical study. Nothing to do with the authorship question. This is by Rhodri Lewis, and it is called Shakespeare's Tragic Art. Just a study, the author's study of what's going on in the tragedies. I remember it being a little stodgy. A lot of these books, like this thing, a lot of these Shakespeare studies are a little stodgy. They're not really readable, probably because they are basically master's thesis. And those are never done for readability because the Academy is screwed up. Let's see. Okay, great. This is Eva Turner Clarke's classic from Once Upon a Time. When this came out, it became a classic. People talked about it. There were cartoons about it in the popular press. Yeah, 1937, this is The Man Who Was Shakespeare. And this is just basically, you can see, right? It's the same person. Basically the same idea, just a generation earlier. It looks like we have an individual play. Yes, this is the Norton Critical Edition of Hamlet, with Benedict Cumberbatch on the cover. This is the second Norton Critical Edition of Hamlet. And then we have the first Norton Critical Edition of Hamlet with, what's his name? Who is that guy? Jude Law as Hamlet on the cover. I would like it if every version of Hamlet that I had a picture of the star, some star. That would be great. Right, okay. We have the Arden Shakespeare, they are fantastic for their notes. They're just incredible for their notes. They are the most well-annotated popular Shakespeare editions. And they did an edition of Henry VIII, which is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. And for some reason, they put Florence Bouquet on the cover. I keep expecting this person to get a call from a Chinese food place so she can correct them. But the notes are what's worth it. Let me have a dreaded slipcase. Some of you get the willies when I handle slipcases because I do it so poorly. This is Library of America. Library of America does tons and tons of great reprints. You can almost reach for one of them. Yes, this is, for instance, their Rachel Carson reprint where they do it in this standard thing. This is a full color paper cover, but usually it's black and white with the red, white, and blue banner across it. And they are known for those kinds of reprints. But every once in a while, they will do an original anthology, and they're always excellent. They're always excellent. And this is one of theirs called Shakespeare in America, which is just a Library of America anthology of all of the critical writings about Shakespeare for 200 years in this country. Okay, then we have another edition of Hamlet. This is the Oxford edition, also fantastic notes and completely different. So a wonderful way to just bone up on an individual play, if you want to do that, as I often want to do, is to just not so much read the play over and over again, although that should come first, but to read the notes, everybody's notes. So here I've got the Norton Critical Edition, an update to the Norton Critical Edition. I've got the Oxford Hamlet. I've got the Penguin Hamlet in the Complete Pelican Shakespeare. I've got the introduction and the notes for Hamlet in the Royal Shakespeare Company, and also the Riverside Shakespeare. I've got lots and lots of Hamlet. Also, what the earlier book that we saw, Hamlet, a User's Guide. I've got all of that if I want to really deep dive into the play. Okay, well, I wish I had these. I wish I had all of these. I've never seen them. I never see them in the wild. This is the BBC, a long time ago, 50 years ago, under Jonathan Miller, did a whole bunch. They did all of Shakespeare. They did original productions of all of Shakespeare. I think the last time I checked, they had been scrubbed from YouTube. But they were great. Almost all of them were great. There were a couple of noticeable failures. Anthony Hopkins, for instance, probably most infamously, Anthony Hopkins doing Othello in blackface. I doubt will ever be reprinted or ever shown anywhere again. But most of their productions are incredibly good. Just incredibly good. So it's a shame they're not widely available anymore. And while they were doing that, they did companion paperback volumes for each play. And I have Measure for Measure. And there's Spock's father on the cover. And the neat thing about these is that they have color stills from the productions. I would love to have this for Henry VIII, for Julius Caesar. Also, the BBC production of Henry IV, Part 1, was really, really good. You wouldn't think it. I mean, you'd think, okay, well, if I'm going to I'll enjoy anybody's production of that for the Falstaff bits, but I won't enjoy any of the rest of it. It was really, really good. I wish that I had these little paperbacks for all of these. They must have done them for all of them. Let's see. Let's move on here. We've got Claude Sykes. This is Alias William Shakespeare. A battered old copy of something from the turn of the century about 1947, about who Shakespeare was. Let's see here. Okay, we have another book by the same title. This is also called The Man Who Was Shakespeare by Calvin Hoffman. He is not a proponent of the Earl of Oxford. As you can see, he's a proponent of Marlowe. You don't have to be a proponent of anybody. You don't have to be a proponent of anybody. You can just say, well, okay, if you tell me that Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon and attacked his own country with his legions, you're not gonna follow it up with "Trust me, bro." You're going to be able to prove it. Coins, inscriptions, first-hand accounts from witnesses, his own account. And if you say to me, along the same lines, William Shakespeare, the Glover's son from Stratford-on-Avon, is the greatest writer in human history, well, you're going to have to say, "Trust me, bro," and you're going to have to say it pretty soon. Very soon. like childhood soon. Did he go to school? Oh, he did. Trust me, bro. Then we have a Signet Classic of Othello. I'm presuming that's not Anthony Hopkins on the cover. These are terrific. These Signet Classic paperbacks. I wish I had them all. I wish I had a whole set of them. Or that they had ever been collected into one volume, which I don't think I think it would be huge. I don't think anyone's ever done that. These have an introduction, just a general introduction to Shakespeare's world, then a specific introduction to the play, then the play with lots of footnotes. See, you've got footnotes all along the bottom there. And then essays in the back and historical excerpts if the thing is based on something in history. That's wonderful. That's just wonderful. Pelican, the people who did the Pelican Shakespeare, briefly did a Shakespeare library. Whole bunch of mass market paperbacks with their signature blue spine that were studies of various aspects of Shakespeare. I used to have 10 of them. They're all great. I used to have like 10 of them. Now I have, I think, 2. This is, and it's falling apart too. This is John Wayne's book, W-A-I-N, not the Duke. The Living World of Shakespeare, A Playgoer's Guide. And that is Laurence Olivier as Othello in blackface. We didn't have any black actors, I guess, at the time. And also, I've got this little Airmont classic of Julius Caesar. Oh, there is Mark Antony over the body of Caesar. For some reason, both of them are wearing funeral shrouds. I just found this, I think, at a little free library, and I thought it was cute to have a little paperback. Then we have Darrell Pinkinson's book, Marlowe's Ghost, blacklisting the man who was Shakespeare. So this is another Shakespeare authorship book, and it is clearly plunking for Marlowe. When that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Marlowe was dead before any of the plays. So that doesn't work. but doesn't matter. Because his death is sketchy. And I admit that. His death is sketchy. But that doesn't mean he lived for 15 more years. Plenty of deaths are sketchy without meaning, well, if you're a conspiracy theorist, then that's exactly what it means. But then we have these individual Pelican Shakespeare volumes. This one is for Henry VIII, which is terrific. They've got a great introduction, great notes, just a wonderful standalone volume. If you want to, for instance, just stick one Shakespeare play in your bag as you're going out and about, you're obviously not going to take something like this on the road with you. So you would just put one Shakespeare play in your bag, and those are wonderful for it. Okay, we have the Shakespeare Library. This is another Shakespeare library. John Russell Brown, Shakespeare's Plays in Performance, with some incredible photos in these things. It's one of the. That's Dame Peggy Ashcroft. How's that? Not even recognizable. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. When it comes to Shakespeare biographies. Like, for instance, something that you won't find on these shelves would be, for instance, Peter Ackroyd's biography of Shakespeare that sold well, really well, still continues to sell well. You won't find that here. Because every time Peter Ackroyd gets to any touch point where his narrative is supposed to touch on biographical fact and he realizes there are no biographical fact, he just says, well, they must be true. It must be true. It must be true. I mean, Napoleon Bonaparte was such a tactical and strategic genius that when he attacked Russia in winter, he must have prevailed. Now, I know there's a standard, the mainstream big Napoleon industry that says that he didn't win, that he was repulsed, that maybe even there's a famous scene to that effect in one of the greatest novels of all time, but he must have. I mean, look at his military reputation. He must have. For some reason, authors who would never dream of doing that on any other subject, it absolutely is absent from Peter Ackroyd's biography of Charles Dickens, for instance. For some reason, when you get to Shakespeare, you're okay with that, and I think we know what the reason is. And when you get to those must-have facts in any conventional life of Shakespeare, he must have gone to school. He must have traveled. He must have apprenticed with a lawyer or known a nobleman on intimate terms so that he knew the procession of service at a private dinner or the verbiage of falconry or swordsmanship. He must have done all that. When you get to any of those must-haves, this is pretty much what you're talking about. This is an author named Nicholas Rowe, who came out with an edition of the works of Shakespeare and prefaced it with a life of Shakespeare. And this is, somebody did this. Who is this? Palace Athene publishers decided to print Nicholas Rowe's Life of Shakespeare as a little book. And you would be amazed. Maybe you wouldn't be amazed. You would be amazed how much of this little thing, how big a book can be made out of this little thing. If you take these 2 or 3 Brontosaurus bones and mix in 1,000 pounds of plaster of Paris. If you do that, you can make this into a 600-page biography, and it will sell. And the key thing about the Nicholas Rowe is that when you study what he knew, you realize that all of that stuff he's making up. You're literally putting your feet down on nothing but air. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, we have Charles Allen, Notes on the Bacon-Shakespeare Question. Because for a long time, Francis Bacon was the main candidate. Then we have you are a divine, but were you allowed a first name? No, you were just getting your church designation. Well, Whatley, whatever, Monsignor or Bishop Whatley. This is Historic Doubts Respecting Shakespeare. So you can see, it's fun to watch this whole thing percolate through time. You got Percy Allen again. This is the life story of Edward de Vere as William Shakespeare. So you've got William Shakespeare in quotes, in scare quotes, very bad condition. But I got this for $3. I'm pretty sure it's probably a lot more than that online, even in worse condition than this. And it's worth reading him on the subject. Worth reading any of these older people. They're more steeped in Shakespeare than any modern scholar is. This guy. Who did we see? This guy. I wrote a whole book, a new book on Shakespeare's tragic art. I'm sure that I guarantee you, he knows 1/10 about Shakespeare. As any of these people who are being called crackpots. Percy Allen knows more about Shakespeare and knows more Shakespeare by heart than any modern scholar. Then we have the great Quiller Couch, the editor of the inaugural Oxford Book of English Verse, and this is his book on Shakespeare's workmanship. No authorship questions here, just how the mechanics of the plays work so well. Okay, then we have G. Greenwood from... When did you publish this thing? 100 years ago? Yeah, 1916, it looks like. Is there a Shakespeare problem? Where the author goes through the subject matter. If you're patient enough and you're crazy enough and you have the Brattle Bookshop, you can amass a library. That's exactly what I've done. If I want to really study the question of whether or not Christopher Marlowe wrote the plays of Shakespeare, whether or not the Earl of Oxford wrote the plays of Shakespeare, but did William Shakespeare of Stratford-on-Avon write the plays we attribute to William Shakespeare? Did he do that? And when I want to study that question, I obviously often do. Well, I've got the perfect library for it. I don't need to go anywhere else. Some of these books are hard to find. Then we have Edwin Weed's book, Bacon versus Shakespeare, where there's not really a contest. He is coming down firmly on Bacon's side. We have this is B.M. Ward, another biography of the 17th Earl of Oxford. There is not that much historical interest in the 17th Earl of Oxford. The reason why there are so many biographies of him is because all the biographers say that he is Shakespeare. He most certainly was not. but still, the amount of weird things in the life of the Earl of Oxford connected with Shakespeare and not explainable is so high that once readers start down that road, they think, well, this has got to prove everything. That is the same as Trust Me, Bro. And they don't realize that. Similarities, coincidences, are not any kind of evidence of authorship. If you're going to make a case against the most revered writer in history, you need receipts, as it were. I mean, in the Earl of Oxford, we come awful close. There are items that happen to him in his biography that come up in Shakespeare's plays that are a little bit on the odd side. They're not anything that a writer would think up on his own. As far as we know, Shakespeare never had any one-to-one contact with the Earl of Oxford, ever, even once, even to say hello. Much less tell each other's life stories over tankards of beer. No, nothing like that. And yet, you can't say, well, maybe it was the talk of London, and Shakespeare knew that, so he was just putting the stuff in his play. It might be the talk of London, and you can't do anything about the talk of London. You can't do anything about the gossip of London that talks all about how your ship was taken by pirates and you washed up on an alien shore with nothing but the shirt on your back. You can't do anything about the talk of London if the talk of London says that. But if a playwright publishes a play and it starts to draw crowds and he's got his name on it, you can do something about that. And the something you can do is have 3 of your boys wait outside the theater with clubs. You wouldn't do it. A playwright would not do that. But also, we're even talking the quiet evidence. The Earl of Oxford had books in his possession, which is far more than we can say for William Shakespeare of Stratford-on-Avon. He had books in his possession, and we have them still. And like all readers, he highlighted and marginaliated certain passages that really appealed to him. As far as we know, no one in the world, while he was alive, saw those books. And those passages, word for word, without exception, turn up in the plays of Shakespeare. What are the odds? What are the odds that out of 300 pages of Ovid, the exact same passage in the exact same book would strike the Earl of Oxford as worthy of underlining and William Shakespeare as worthy of putting in his play? What are the odds? Anyway, let's keep going. Oh, goodness. Okay. We have Eva Turner Clarke again. This is her Hidden Illusions in Shakespeare's plays. Nice addition with a dust jacket there. Let's see. Okay. We have another archetypal book. In my opinion, the sine qua non in this whole thing is this. It's Diana Price's book. Because she doesn't have an axe to grind, and she's not a lunatic. And she goes at this thing quantitatively. If you're going to say this about someone in history, well, then you should be able to ask these questions about all the people around them, left and right, and then assess the answers. Let's not consider him exceptional. Let's assess the answers across 17 writers. But if you're not saying that, then the foundational book here is Shakespeare Identified by J. Thomas Loney, in which he purports to do the same thing as Diana Price. Now, in his case, I think he was lying. There's never been any proof to that. I don't know that for sure, but I think he was lying. He claims that he went through the plays of Shakespeare meticulously, assuming that Shakespeare of Stratford-on-Avon was their author. He went through them meticulously and drew up from their contents a detailed profile of who would have written them. Improvident with money, attractive to both sexes, probably an arch royalist or even a Catholic. I'm going to go through the plays and I'm going to determine these characteristics, and then I'm going to look around for someone who fits the characteristics that he lit on the Earl of Oxford. Now, I don't believe that happened. I think he went in as a conspiracy theorist anyway, if not just an outright Oxfordian. But it doesn't matter. It's the profile. The profile is grounded on the works. And like I said, the scholars of these earlier generations know the works of Shakespeare 10 times better than the scholars today who devote their whole life to it. Okay. Oh, this next one's big. Oh, it's another Shakespeare. This is just one of these brick collected works of Shakespeare. I found it and just, I loved the look of it. That's all. I mean, I don't know how often I would use it, but I'm a bit of a Shakespeare fan, so I grabbed it. Okay, this is... there's lots of stuff in it. Good Lord. This is by Alden Brooks. This is William Shakespeare and the Dyer's Hand. Still has the sticker on the spine. That's kind of rare. You don't usually find that, because this is... Look at this. There's all sorts of stuff in here. All sorts of old postcards and whatnot. This is from 1940 something or other. 1943. So, great. A study of Shakespeare. We have... okay, this is by George McNeill and Edgar Glenn. This is a little thing that was done by Dover Books. No, Odyssey Press. This is Shakespeare and His Rivals, a casebook for the authorship controversy. So no frills at all. This is just designed for you to bone up on your subject. These things are falling over because we are, believe it or not, getting to the end. We are. Okay, this is an anthology, a whole bunch of people, Northrop Frye and a whole bunch of other people. This is the riddle of Shakespeare's sonnets. Just a study of the intricacies of Shakespeare's sonnets, including the putative identities of some of the people who are only alluded to. Okay, then we have Calvin Hoffman. So with Calvin Hoffman, we saw, where is it? Yeah, we saw this, The Man Who Was Shakespeare. And this was popular. It took off. It did well. So he wrote a sequel, which mine is in terrible shape. But this is The Murder of the Man Who Was Shakespeare. So this is a sequel to that. They really do. I'm going to put them together because they really do belong together. And this, like I said, he plunks for Marlowe. So this is all about the death of Christopher Marlowe and is a perfect example of a factually redundant book. I know I say all the time that biographies and histories really shouldn't be judged solely on the yardstick of redundancy. There's also lots of effort. There's narrative energy. There's how readable it is. But the final word on the death of Christopher Marlowe is The Reckoning by Charles Nicholl, which is not on this shelf. But this is good. It's very interesting. And I think, if I remember correctly, it emphasizes a couple of points about that death in Deptford that Nicholl doesn't emphasize. He knows about them, but he doesn't emphasize them. That's interesting. That's always interesting. But I think you'd have to be a real fan to... what's this next one? That's not, oh, okay. All right. All right. Let's get you out of here. This is not a foundational text. It comes late to the question, but it's the most famous convert. This is Mark Twain's last book. Is Shakespeare Dead? Which goes... It's a wonderful blend of autobiography and then Mark Twain grappling with the subject of what are the factual claims about Shakespeare? What are they? And it's wonderful. It really is wonderful. It's done. Of course, it's written better than any of these others, but it's basically the same thing. It basically tears apart Nicholas Rowe. All you really need to do is tear apart Nicholas Rowe. Once you've done that, you've done everything. Because aside from that, we have, aside from the artistic stuff, the poaching of the deer and the burbling numbers and whatnot, aside from that, which Nicholas Rowe made up, he made it all up. Aside from that, we have historical appearances of the man Shakespeare. No one's saying that. No one's saying that he doesn't appear in the historical record, but he certainly doesn't appear as a playwright or a well-known writer of any kind. And that bothers Mark Twain, who, keep in mind, is writing under a pseudonym. So he's maybe a little touchier on the subject than anything, and he is asking, as far as anybody knows or can prove, Shakespeare never owned a book. As far as anybody knows or can prove, Shakespeare never went to school. As far as anybody knows or can prove, Shakespeare never left England. As far as anybody knows or can prove, Shakespeare never left London, except to go back and forth to Warwickshire. Twain doesn't point out what others do, which is that Shakespeare would barely have been comprehensible. The Warwickshire accent would have been barely comprehensible in London. And so on and so forth. By the time he gets to London, he's writing epic plays, or epic poems, and dedicating them to the Earl of Southampton. How? How is that possible? You might say, I would say, well, okay, there's no record that he went to school in Stratford-on-Avon, and you would say, well, they don't have school records from that year, or from that batch of years, so that doesn't prove anything. Okay, well, we know the names, by inference, we know the names of lots of other people who would have been going to that school at that time, so the records are lost for all of them. Any of the rest of them writing The Rape of Lucrece, dedicating it to the Earl of Southampton? No. And anyway, it takes the Shakespearean authorship controversy and makes it classic literature, which is awesome. Oh, how sad. All right, we're done. We're at 40 minutes. That is my Shakespeare section. Aside from, this is where this whole Brenventory becomes nonsense. Aside from books like this, there are a few books like this that are not here yet that need to be. And also aside from all the Shakespeare that's in the little book room. And also The Reckoning by Charles Nicholl, which is in biography under Marlowe. Catastrophe. Just disaster. Also, didn't we hit already? Yeah, there you are. Anthony Burgess' book on Shakespeare is not on these shelves. Neither is Aspects of Hamlet. Okay. Well, we're going to go through it all. But we will finish up this bookcase next time, because there's only a little bit left. And it'll be a much shorter video, thank God. So I'll wrap this up, and I'll hope to do that next time. Thank you, BookTube.